Welcome to Integrate Online, presented by the West Virginia University College of Creative Arts and Media, which offers renowned online master's degree programs in marketing communications. Thank you for joining us. Today, we'll be discussing careers in marketing, what is not data marketing these days, which is a rhetorical question, in case you haven't figured, with our guests, Virginia Gedley and Tongtong Qu. Please be sure to keep your mics muted for the session and send questions in the chat feature. My name is Katian Do, and I am your host today. I teach masters in digital marketing communications and data marketing communications here at West Virginia University. I started my professional journey as an engineer and later got a scholarship to complete my MBA in Italy and made a career transition into marketing many years ago. I currently work on the central marketing team at Amazon in New York City. I love what I do. And I noticed that as the scope of my work grows bigger and more complex, I really rely on data and my analytical skills to make educated decisions. So I'm super excited to dive into this topic with my guests who will share their career journeys in marketing and talk about how we leverage data for just about anything. So welcome. Tongtong and Virginia, could you introduce yourselves to our audience?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Tongtong, originally from China, and I moved to US 10 years ago and complete both my bachelor's and master's degree at the University of Washington in Seattle. After working in digital marketing for over 5 years, I joined TikTok last year and pivoted to a more operational and strategic role. So right now, I provide end-to-end solutions for brands and enable sellers to grow their GMV on TikTok Shop. And nice to meet you all. Thank you for inviting me.
Hi, I'm Virginia, originally from Italy. I moved a little bit all around Europe. I first moved to Amsterdam to complete a bachelor in communication science, followed by a master in marketing at HEC Paris. And after graduating, I joined Amazon for 3 years, where I worked as a digital marketer in Luxembourg, and I led push marketing efforts for the Sell on Amazon Europe team. Then I just recently I decided to make a bit of a career switch, still in marketing, and now I work as a digital strategist in London at Allyson Worldwide, where data is really at the core of what I do. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the introductions. So when I met each of you, I actually thought my students need to hear your stories because although you took really different paths, I see you both as very successful very early on in your careers. So for Tongtong, I find you to be really resourceful in finding opportunities and growing your skills. And for Virginia, and for people who didn't read her bio, she was awarded Women of High Potential at HEC Paris, which I personally think is just extremely well earned. So the next question I prepared for each of you is, what inspired you to get into the field of marketing?
I can maybe start with that. So I think it was very organic. I got into photography at a very early age in my life, and I started working with small local brands and events when I was back in high school. And then, as I said, very organically, basically this experience brought to a passion for the broader world of marketing. And I was really fascinated about how creativity and strategy can shape brand identity and consumer perception. So from there, I just started at the beginning really studying by myself what is marketing, what is digital marketing more specifically. And then that's why I decided to go into communication science and then marketing in my university choices.
So for me, now I'm an introvert person, but back to primary school, I was more extrovert. So since primary school, I planned and hosted a lot of student events and gatherings. And then when I was in college, I used to write blogs and sell ads for a radio station on campus. And I also manage social media accounts, create different content across platforms. So I think my journey with marketing started right there. And also, I majored in communication at college, so which is more like a general study back then. So I've tried different things since college, so including social media, sales, copywriting, event marketing, and more. So somehow those are all related to marketing.
That's very cool. So thank you both for sharing a little bit of your journeys or the beginning of your journeys. I'm sure we'll get into more details next. As you all know, marketing is a discipline that offers a lot of opportunities, and there are also different ways of working in the field. For example, working in-house solely for the brand or the company that you work for, or work for an agency where you manage multiple clients and different types of marketing activities, or working as a consultant. So I personally have worked in all three, and I know some of you have as well. So can you maybe talk about the pros and cons of each, and how do our students determine which is best for them?
I can share a little bit. So for me, honestly, I didn't know what I really wanted to do when I was in college. So I think those TV shows such as Mad Men or stories about how cool working at agencies made me dream of working at an agency after graduation. But the reality is I'm an international student and also a non-native English speaker. So it's not easy to find a job with sponsorship at a local agency. So I started to intern and then work full-time in corporate since grad school. And during the pandemic, I volunteered as a consultant to support local small business owners, artists, and nonprofit organizations to digitalize their business and operations, and including running social media campaigns or planning virtual events. Based on what I've experienced and observed, I think the biggest difference between in-house versus agency or being a consultant is whether you manage or run marketing campaigns for one brand or one organization or multiple. So in the past, I would say working in-house might be more stable, but with the current economics, I feel like everything is pretty fluid. So honestly speaking, if I enjoy working for multiple brands, organizations across different industries, or switching projects every 3 to 6 months, I would choose an agency or a consultant role. But it doesn't mean that you cannot work on long-term projects in these scenarios. And if I am looking for a sense of belonging and making a larger business impact, and also being dedicated to serving one brand or just one persona, then I would choose to work in-house. And sometimes like working in-house also plays a role like an in-house agency if you have many stakeholders and markets to support. So this is similar to my first job after graduation. So I support more than 30 different markets. And my manager always told me that, oh, we are like an in-house agency. So I think cultures such as work-life balance or flexible hours, hybrid mode, like working from home or compensation-wise, I think nowadays really vary case by case, and there's no right or wrong. So I think what works for you is the best choice.
Yeah, I can just agree with what Tong Tong just said, to be honest. For me, it was at the beginning, it was a bit different. So I was not really fascinated by the agency life when I was in university. So that's why I was looking for an in-house role. And that's how I got then into Amazon with my first internship. Um, and personally, I loved working in-house. I found great satisfaction from the opportunity of building and also being part of a lasting brand strategy. Like I felt like I was building something that was meant to last in the future, and that I found great satisfaction from. Um, although like after 3 years, I felt like, okay, now I'm a bit stuck. I've been working on the same thing for 3 years, like on the same brand, right? You work more or less on the same channels. Obviously, the campaign vary, but the product and the service that you work on in-house tend to stay the same. Obviously, one thing that needs to be said is that when you work in big companies like Amazon, you have the opportunity to change teams, and that I think it's one of the best things that you get out of a big corporation, because when you change teams and organization, oftentimes it's like you start a whole new job. So there is that piece of curiosity and excitement that kicks in at the beginning of a new job. But then for me, after 3 years, I realized, you know what, I prefer a job that offers a broader range of projects and chances to work with different brands, maybe B2C, B2B, food industry, or restaurants, or any other industry that you might think of. So that's why then I joined agency, and I joined a worldwide agency, especially because usually when you go into bigger agency, you have the opportunity to work on a greater variety of clients, and they're not usually industry specific. So that's why I made the change. But in my opinion, the best way to determine whether you like one better than the other is to test them. And that's why I think doing internship is so great, because you get the opportunity to experience different things. So really it's up to you as you personally fit with the culture and the setup of the work.
Thank you for sharing. I also I wanted to just chime in on some personal opinions about working in an agency. I also worked at an agency for a period of time, and I was responsible for 30 accounts with 30 different clients who are small to medium-sized businesses. So if you think about it, and I managed a group of marketers and strategists, so it's not like I was on the ground working the details and the operations of each account. But if you think about it, 30 accounts, for each account, we try to have a meeting with the client for an hour every week to report on our progress, align on next steps, give them visibility on what we're working on. And then for each client, at least we need to take 30 minutes to prepare, like present the data, pull the data. And usually we have some things going on where we need to deep dive, which takes more time. So let's say for each client, just the reporting communications takes an hour and a half. And with 30 clients, that's 45 hours every week. So obviously we don't do that every week, and we don't do it to that length. But if you think about it, it's like if we can just do that full time. And what happens in an agency setting is that it's very fast paced, as both of you have shared. I found that I learned rapidly across different digital channels. I learned to very quickly adapt to a company's operations and wear a different hat. But I also don't go very deep. Like I just didn't have hours to spend. So what I took away from the agency experience is that now I get to say I worked in all these industries, from media to education to nonprofit. Like I've tried them all. And I also get to say that I have experience in all of these media channels, whether it's performance marketing, whether it's brand marketing, it's creative marketing. I've also done them all. So I find that for someone who's recently graduated or who's new to marketing, agency would provide a tremendous growth opportunities to a point where you know what you're interested in. And then maybe you can try to focus on a particular field or channel, or choose your specialization. And when people get to that point, I usually recommend for them to try in-house for a little bit, because then you really get to dedicate your full attention to that one thing and really go deep into a field. So like Tongtong said earlier, there's no right answer. Everybody has a different path and different circumstances. But for generic scenario of I like marketing, I don't know how to start. If this is the path that's available to students or someone who comes to me for advice, I would usually share this piece. I don't know if either of you have any comments or feedback, or do you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. If you
Yes.
have the opportunity to work in agency as a first thing, then it's great.
Yeah, and also that's what I heard from my friends. So they have both the in-house offer and the agency offer, or it
Yeah.
might be a consultant offer. So they would go to the agency side or consultant first because they want to experience different industry or working with the different people to find the interest. But if you have a strong interest and you know what you want to work on, and then maybe in-house can be a start point.
Yeah, I also talk to my friends, and they all share very similar things about agency versus in-house. And then at some point when they stop wanting to work for other people, they start consultancies, or they start taking on independent consulting projects. So they have total flexibility of clients and their time. So like this seems to be a very common theme in how people choose their work capacity.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So let's move on to the next topic. What do you two think are the key skills needed to succeed in a career in marketing?
So I believe there is digital marketing requires a blend of technical skills as well as soft skills. So when we talk about technical skills, it's quite the obvious one, right? Understanding SEO, understanding paid search, understanding social media, and data analysis, which is at the core of marketing, as we are trying to say in this session, I guess. And then on the other hand, there is soft skills, right? And this is creativity, strategic thinking, effective communication, which are key for everything within digital marketing. And then a tendency or a tendency for curiosity, because I feel like in digital marketing, you really have to stay always on top of things and on top of updates, especially when we talk about social media that are sending out updates every 2 weeks. You really have to be someone who's willing to learn and keep learning and stay curious on the day-to-day job.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and I echo to what Virginia just said. I totally agree. And I think it's a mix of hard and soft skills. And also, depending on who you work for and where you work at, you will have a different set of skills. So, for example, if you work at a smaller startup and be a team of one in marketing team, and then you will need to know a bit of everything. However, if you work for a larger company and where their organizational structure is very thorough and detailed, then if you work, for example, as a social media specialist, you will only work on social related stuff, but you might also partner with people from SEO or like other different projects or business purposes. But I think everything nowadays cannot live without data. Even working as a content creator. So in the past, I'm the like social insights manager, and then I partner with content creator. So they always come to me and ask, what performs the best? Can you share any insights? Can you share any data? How my content perform across each platforms? So I think you will need to know how to. So if you don't know how to process data, but at least you need to know how to read data or how to use data to tell a story.
I love your answer here, Tongtong, because one of the things I would love for you to share today is about the importance of data in certain areas of marketing specifically. And I'm phrasing it this way because I noticed that a lot of the times students or even marketers consider some marketing work as data-driven, such as all the performance marketing channels, and then they consider some others as emotional driven. So like examples would include brand strategy or organic social media posts. So even though they don't call them these exact names, they make decisions as if certain work in marketing require data and certain marketing activities don't. So given that Virginia, you're an expert in brand marketing, and Tongtong, you played a critical role in insights and analytics for the organic social media content for some of the largest brands out there, what do you two think about the importance of data in what you do on top of what you already shared?
Yeah. So as you said, right, there are, and these are just ideas that I think are there out in the industry, which is that some marketing categories are less data driven and more emotion driven, and brand marketing is definitely one of these, where everyone thinks like, oh, you get into a room, you do some brainstorming, and that's it, you come out with these beautiful ideas. And that, I think, Emily in Paris really reinforced this idea. That is so wrong. I get asked so many times like, so you do the same job as Emily in Paris? And I'm like, not really. There is a very not as nice piece that we do before coming to the ideas in brand marketing as well, which is data. And like, on top of what I said, the skills that you need for digital marketing, I think for brand marketing, you also need the market's research and brand strategy skills, as well as empathy and storytelling. And these two pieces get together when then you get into a brainstorming and you try to build a brand strategy. But before doing that, doing the nice, lovely part, there is the market research piece. Because if you don't know who you are talking to, and if you don't know the ecosystem, if you don't know your competitors, then you cannot decide how you're going to communicate, how you're going to position yourself in the market. Imagine if you are a brand who's targeting Gen Z, you cannot just go and think about how you communicate to millennials or Gen X, right? You have to understand, how do Gen Z like to hear about brands on social media today, or what channels do they prefer? Do they prefer Snapchat rather than Instagram, or TikTok rather than Facebook? So understanding the whole ecosystem that you are about to enter with your brand is extremely relevant before you go and do the nice creative piece of the brand marketing.
I think, echo to what Virginia said, you might hear a lot about how we should be a data-driven marketer, or like being an insights-driven marketer. So I think that's true, because, for example, in a corporate environment, you cannot live without data. So I think being a data-driven marketer is heavily focused on like data pieces, but being an insights-driven marketer, that's what I saw on LinkedIn. Someone posted that. So it's more like a mix of rational and emotional decisions or insights. So I think, for example, back to Amazon, like, or any of the corporate I've been worked for. So in a larger environment, it's always competitive, trying to having more resources, or trying to ask for more budget. So I think knowing data, and you will use data as your tool to earn trust, prioritize projects, showcase the impact. And when you ask for a budget, or ask people or your leaders to do more for you, then you will need to use data to convince them. And from the day-to-day perspective, I think being creative is good. And you might also have many brilliant ideas running social media campaigns. But at the end of the day, you will need to come back to how you measure the campaign. Like, even you have a campaign that based on your creativity, not like based on historical data. But when you launch the campaign, you still need to evaluate the success of the campaign, and that will need data. So whether it's related to brand awareness, or is it for conversions or demand generation, you need to assess your campaign performance. I think in the meantime, you also need to rely on data to help you make the smarter decision for future campaigns.
This actually reminds me of a thought. It just came up, but I usually tell students that this is my personal experience. I don't know if the two of you would agree. During economic volatility, there will be times where a company would either want to cut their spending, or they would want to reduce their workforce. And putting myself in the seat of someone who like owns a company or makes executive decisions of a company, what I end up concluding is there are a few departments that are very vulnerable to this type of instability. One of them is likely recruitment, because if a company doesn't need to recruit as many people, of course they don't need many recruiters. And another one would be upper funnel activities, such as brand marketing, things like this, because I don't think executives are unaware that they're important. I think a lot of the times they struggle to understand where the money went. Because if you put money into a performance channel such as search marketing, there's dollars in and there's dollars out that you can measure. But for something like brand marketing or social media content, like a lot of the leaders would think you do what needs to be done to maintain status quo. And if we really need to cut spending, we'll just cut the growth budget in these areas. And that's why I think that's why I thought this is an important question for the both of you to answer, is because I think these are important areas in marketing and important activities to run in a business. But a lot of the times people forget that you need to measure the impact. So what does this brand campaign actually contribute? What is the impact it brought to the business? And this is how we get to protect our budget or even grow our scope in the work we do in marketing. So this is something that I always remind my students, even if it's an intuitive decision or something that requires a lot of creativity, make sure you can justify the result and the impact as much as possible.
Yeah,
I also
totally agree.
Yeah.
had another thought that came up while you were talking, which is, what do you think about the scenario where the data is there? Like, let's say we collect the same set of data, and then one marketer would take the data and then draw a different conclusion or do something different with their brand strategy or with their social media content versus another marketer, even though they had the same data. Do you think that's something that needs to be addressed, or is that just what it is? Like, a marketer is what makes the project sing?
I think the unique perspective of a marketer will obviously have an impact on the final result, right? You can start from the same point A, but then the point B to which you arrive might most probably will look completely different from the one of another marketer. And I think that's the beauty of marketing, that nothing is set in stone, but like your unique perspective, your unique past experiences and your creativity will modify and model the data into a solution. And I personally love that on marketing, and it's great. And that's why marketing shouldn't be a one-person job. Is usually like when we brainstorm, you shouldn't brainstorm by yourself to get to a solution. You should, especially when we talk about very creative work, you should brainstorm with different marketers or different creatives so that you can come up with the most extraordinary solutions to then like dial them down and get to a well-rounded creative solution.
Yeah, let's talk about creative integration. So how can data-driven insights be effectively integrated with creative marketing strategies to enhance or improve market impact without stifling creativity? And this could include messaging, visual assets, or copies.
I'll start since I just mentioned it. I think I always see data, and I had this conversation recently with my creative director where he was like, how do you think data fits in my job? Because obviously he works only on the creative side, so he doesn't see the pre-work that we do with the data. And how I see is that you use data as a compass, whether it's you as a marketer doing the creative, the first creative work, or you pass the insights to the creative team. The data just helps the team navigate to the correct creative solution. This said, I think that we need to be careful about how we use the data in creative brainstorming. I think overloading ourselves with data too early in the creative process can hinder our ability to think outside of the box. So what I usually think about as the best practice for this is the very first brainstorming, you just go crazy, go with the very big ideas. Don't think about budget, don't think about data, think about the context and the ecosystem where you're going, obviously, but do not think about all the specifics. And then once you have these great ideas, then you try dial it down and funnel it so that you use data to find the perfect solution from the great ideas. In this way, you don't affect creativity.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think to me, when I think about data and creativity within the marketing hat, the first thing that came to my mind is A/B test. So I think for my past job and also my current role, I did a lot of A/B testing. Some of the A/B testing I initiated, some of the A/B testing my partner marketer initiated, but I need to evaluate the success. So I think when you have a new project, especially, or when you work on something new, it's always nice, or I would say necessary, to conduct A/B test if you have the resource, because you might have all kinds of thoughts, and especially like if you are not the team of one, you have multiple people working on the similar project, I think it's more like a collective effort. And then you have multiple brains to bring up different ideas. So when those ideas come together, I think it would be great if you can do A/B test. So by control the variant and then have multiple experiment group, you will be able to see whether, for example, version A of the email or version A of the social copy works better than version B. Or like you might have 7 different experiment groups. So I think by doing the A/B testing, you will know what's working from the data. And also, if you have a lot of different stakeholders and each of them hold a different opinion, by doing the A/B testing and have the result, you will be able to communicate and convince, and then kind of find a middle ground and have an agreement. So I think A/B testing is one of the things I highly recommend practicing. And then the more you do this, and I think you will have a better mix of creativity and data-driven decisions.
Thank you. I totally thought of A/B testing with my previous thought of like, what if marketers have the same set of data, but they make different decisions? And while Virginia was saying that's the beauty of marketing, I was like, yeah, A/B testing will be perfect for scenarios like this, where both ideas are great. As a brand, you don't know which one is going to work better, so test it. And you might end up having data that proves one is better over the other for your particular objective, or you'll learn something where like neither idea is the best, and then you do something else. So in that case, I don't think there's like, that's the beauty of data marketing, is there is no right or wrong ideas, and the data will eventually teach you something to improve. So I love the idea of A/B testing, and thank you for bringing that up. And then continuing to what you said earlier, both of you, about not being overwhelmed by data in the beginning. And then Virginia, you were saying like, think big, brainstorm first. So when someone encounters a problem, where do they start to gather initial data? Like, where do you tend to start? Are there tools or resources that are your go-tos?
So I feel like lately with the rise of AI solutions like ChatGPT or Gemini, I feel like a lot of people will rush there when they have a problem and they need a quick answer and a quick solution, or like a variety of answers to their problem. And while that's possibly the easiest and fastest way to get an answer, I feel like we have to remember that over relying on AI can limit critical thinking and problem solving in the long term for us. So whenever I encounter a difficulty, this said, I'm not saying do not use ChatGPT and Gemini. I think they're great solutions, but maybe there is a pre-work to do first, and then you use AI as a second solution. I think one way to go and find answer is using industry-specific websites, relying on content that I get from newsletters that I am signed up for. I always find a lot of content on those, using things like online databases like JSTOR if it's something very specific and where there might be some scientific research done around. And government website is also a great option to find answers.
Yeah, I think for me, what I learned at Amazon is because people or like leadership always ask me what's the industry benchmark or what other competitors are doing and how our performance compared to the competitors. So I think for me, I usually just trying to look for some benchmarks. So either like a Google or find the industry report, or even like some blog like HubSpot, or some tools that they are also have blog or newsletter. So I think that's my go-to spot, because trying to understand the benchmark or like how other people are doing similar thing sometimes can give me some inspirations. But also I think sometimes you also need to trust yourself, because if you read a lot of different opinions, then you might get lost. So then you will be the person who need to make the call, what kind of data you want to use, and also what kind of inspirations will actually help with your current project.
I appreciate your answer a lot. And I think I was sharing some of my stories with both of you from teaching the data marketing program here, where sometimes, for example, my students will try to find data about a company and they don't have first party data, or even if they have first party data from the brand they're working on, it's anecdotal. So they would find multiple numbers on the internet that are very different. And then they would come to me with multiple numbers. They were like, well, the source says this company has an annual revenue of 10 million. This one says it has 100 million. What do I use? And so for the purpose of thinking and backing up decisions with data, I tell them to use their judgment and pick a number that makes more sense to them, but justify it. But like you said, Tongtong, just now, also just trust yourself. There are some times where our guts just tell us like it doesn't make sense. If a company sells a product, or like some luxury company that sells a product for $1,000 a piece, they cannot just be making $10 million a year. That means they sell very little. So if there are thoughts like this that come up in anyone's mind when they do this type of exercise, examine them, like think about them. It may or may not have a lot of merit and help you choose one set of data you find over another. Or maybe that question doesn't make sense, but this is still a very good mental exercise to go through in general.
Yeah, and honestly, sorry, Katie, and I was just thinking, and that's exactly why I said yes, do use maybe ChatGPT and Gemini if you're looking for a fast, quick answer. Check the sources, obviously, but they can over reliance on AI can affect critical thinking, and that's exactly an example of what you just gave. It's a good example, right? If you just try to get an answer from ChatGPT, then you're not gonna think about, oh wait, let's look at the industry, let's look at what year are we in, are there maybe other industry factors that I should consider.
Yeah,
Right.
and also I would suggest comparing multiple data source and then find the most trustful one and go to that one as your go-to place. And also, I think another thing is maybe all the data are accurate or valid, but it's just how people calculate the result. So for example, when we talk about engagement for social media, so sometimes a certain company or certain team only calculate like comment or share, but some also calculate like if you respond multiple times, it will count multiple times as multiple engagements. So I think there's the little tiny thing like how to do the calculation sometimes will make a huge difference. So I would just double check how to calculate the definition of your metrics and cross compare multiple data source.
Mhm. That's such a good point. It just reminded me of another example in my teaching where students are trying to define their primary, secondary, and tertiary markets. At one point, students will find, people with salary over a certain amount are likely to buy blah, blah, blah product. And then later on in the same assignment, I will find that they use another source that uses household income, which is a very different concept, but they're comparing the two to determine like the income level of an audience. And so I think it's very important to compare the source of the data and compare how this data came about and make sure that you are always comparing apples to apples and that the data you use help answer the specific question that you're trying to answer. What are some other common challenges that marketers face when they attempt to apply data analytics in their campaigns, and how can students prepare better to tackle these challenges?
Do you want to start, Duncan?
Yeah, I can start first. So I think it depends on the scenarios or your situation. So if you are just working on a certain project, then I think maybe the challenge is like Katia just mentioned, you cannot find the primary source or first-hand data or because of certain reasons, you have the data, but you cannot share because of like the privacy or your agreement between that company or organization. But in the real world, I think for me, many of the challenges are related to get alignment are used for using the same set of data or using the same set of calculations with cross-functional team, or like trying to communicate with leadership and convince them to make decision by using data, because you need to assuming that you are a marketer and you are a professional, but the people who you work with or talking to, they may not have the marketing experience. And I would say, like, assuming your audience is from can be 5 years old or can be 80 years old, and you need to find a way to communicate using data to communicate with them and get alignment. So I think that's pretty challenging sometimes. Um, and also processing a larger set of data sometimes can be challenging, but nowadays you have different tools. You have not only the spreadsheet, the Excel, but you also have different tools to help you process data. I think that will make your job more efficient as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do agree. I have faced some of the challenges that you mentioned. I think one of the biggest challenges that I had encountered at Amazon, because it's such a big company, it's data being stored in silos. So maybe I will have a set of data, and then a team that is sitting right next to me will have another set of data. That if I had that set of data, I would be able to inform my campaigns, for example, so much better. So that's literally communication. That there is only a matter of trying to build a non-siloed team and try to communicate and build a database that everyone can access within the organization, very well structured database, so that especially marketers can go and pick the data points that are needed to build a well-rounded campaign. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I think a lot of marketers encounter, especially in big companies, where it's a bit harder to have that clear communication. And then another big challenge that Ketan, you mentioned before, it's proving ROI. A lot of the times it's hard to attribute marketing efforts to specific outcomes, especially when it comes to social media organic and social media paid. If you don't have, for example, the ability to use pixels, it's very hard to say, oh, we spend these many hours on building the social media organic page, but then I cannot tell you what are the results lower in the funnel, because there are so many variables, and social media, it's a long-term game. You do social media organic to build your presence, to build awareness, engagement, and then that is going to affect lower funnel results. But maybe you're not going to see that it's coming from social media, because it's going to come from search marketing, from search ads, right? So that's a big challenge. I don't have an answer to how to overcome this. I wish I had. I think Katiana had the same issue in her previous role.
We actually had long conversations about this, because Virginia and I, we were both very passionate about social marketing, and this is a known issue in the industry. So attribution, and what I mean by attribution is, let's imagine somebody's journey to buy something, like a brand wants a prospective customer to buy something. A prospect customer, let's say they've never heard about this brand. They were probably scrolling on their social media app, and then they saw an awareness ad, and then they got introduced to the brand for the first time. So of course they just heard about this brand. They know nothing about this brand. Okay, good, name. And then they move on to live their lives. And then the next time they're probably running into an issue, and they're like, okay, I think I need a product to solve this issue. And now they're searching online for a product, and then this brand popped up in the search result among other products. So they're like, oh, sounds familiar, and now they're more interested. So it's possible that from there, they already click on the product because it's the second time that they see this product, they have some familiarity. They may or may not even end up purchasing on that round. And then maybe a couple of days later, the same brand or the same product from the brand came up in a conversation with a friend. And now they're like, okay, this is the third time I'm ready to purchase. They go back and they search and then make a purchase. Now, from an attribution and tracking perspective, the credit does not go to the social ad they see because they didn't conduct any actions. They didn't even click, they just saw it. But was the impact there? Absolutely. So I think as an industry, this is an ongoing challenge where we're trying to properly credit channels that are harder to track. So even, with a search that's more click-based and have a shorter conversion cycle, a lot of the times people say, well, they click multiple times, they search multiple times, how do we proper credit it? Now imagine even more upper funnel where somebody just sees it. Like they could have seen it, they could not have seen it. We just know that the ad was served. We don't know what happens to the ad. And then in aggregate, we know that upper funnel activities are really important. So this is one of the challenges that I think about a lot in performance marketing. And I hope we have a solution or we continue to move towards the solution as an industry
For sure.
rather than companies continuously thinking, okay, the social campaigns generated no results, let's cut the campaign budget and then also impact their lower channels. Speaking of, I guess, trends and upcoming years and solutions that we want, how do you both see marketing evolving in the coming years, and what skills do you think will be most in demand?
I think especially in digital marketing, as I said before, right, where you get a social media update every 2 weeks and you have to keep adjusting your campaigns. There's going to be a lot of evolving there. One thing, this is more on the audience side, is that people are lowering their span of attention. We need to really find creative ways to grasp their attention in the first 2 seconds. Like I remember when I started working in marketing, it was like, oh, we need to get their attention in the first 5 to 10 seconds. Now I'm told we need to find ways to get their attention in the first 2 to 3 seconds, and I'm like, that's insane. But that's true. Like you have to really find creative ways. So creativity again comes in as a skill that is needed. And also data analysis, because understanding what we were saying before, right? Doing A/B testing and understanding what works and what doesn't work is extremely important here, and adjusting campaigns based on what we've seen in the past. And then an additional change, I think that it will continue in the industry, is the increased focus on privacy and data ethics. Privacy regulations have been tightening for the past years. We've seen what is happening with TikTok in the US. So really staying on top of those regulations and always trying to understand what we can do and what we cannot do in terms of data use, especially on social media, is extremely important.
Yeah, I think for me, I can think of like two main things. So one is about AI, because there's a lot of discussion or controversy around whether, for example, copywriter's job will be replaced by AI, because you just need to type a prompt and then ChatGPT will provide you something. But from my past experience and also when I talking to different professionals, I think the human part and the human's creativity is not cannot be easily replaced, because if you use AI or use those tools to generate content, that will be based on algorithm. So maybe they have more information than one brain, human brain, but as a human being, you have more emotions and you have more real life experience and all of that. And also even you have a team, you will have multiple brains, and all those effort come together, I think will be more beautiful than something that AI generated. But I think AI also can be useful when you need to try to do the grammar check or something. I think that will be helpful as well. And another topic came to mind is like the evolving of the tools and the platforms. So no matter it is for social media, for example, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, nobody knows TikTok, and YouTube may not have shorts as the trend as well. So I think, like Virginia said, trying to catch people's attention in the first few seconds, and also to me is between Facebook versus YouTube or versus TikTok, the content format looks different, but maybe the culture or the dynamic within that platform are very different, and the audience are very different. So how you can keep up with the trends and how you can tell the difference between different platforms and be able to come up with tailored strategy, I think that's pretty critical. And also, I think if you know the core of marketing or like the fundamental skills you have along your way, then no matter what kind of new platforms coming out or what kind of new algorithm coming out, you will be able to apply easily. So similar to maybe a software developer, so they know one programming language, it will be easier for them to learn other programming language at the same time.
And how do you two keep learning and polishing your marketing skills? What resources do you leverage?
So for me, I think practice is very important. So if you have the opportunity, whether internship or volunteers or like your full-time job, if you can practice, then I think it's the one of the most fast way to get a lot of experience. But also in the meantime, I think nowadays it's easier to access information, but sometimes we will feel more overwhelmed with a lot of information. So for me, I usually just subscribe 1 or 2 different newsletters. So might be Google, might be HubSpot, or might be some trustful resource. I usually just subscribe newsletters and try to get some information. But also for me personally, I enjoy talking to people. So sessions like this, or maybe just a one-on-one chat with more experienced professionals, I think I learned a lot from that. And also in your real work environment, I think having brainstorm sessions or having workshops with your coworkers can also inspire new ideas or help you keep up with different trends.
Yeah, agreed. What I do is I actually overwhelm myself with information through newsletters. I do not subscribe to 2 or 3. I subscribe to like 10 or 15, which can be overwhelming at times. But at the same time, as I was saying before, sometimes you can just search on your inbox and you're able to find information in those newsletters. So that's a great that's a database that you have access to. And then brainstorming, talking to people that always know more about me, trying to be exposed more and more to those people. That's how I try to challenge myself and learn from them. And then as much as possible, I try to attend networking events. Maybe I won't find people that are in my same industry, so they might not be in marketing, but because they are in other sectors, sometimes they're in research. I just get exposed to different ways of thinking, to understanding how different companies work, how different industries work, and sometimes that's very helpful also for my job.
Thank you. That's super helpful. I'm trying to manage our time so we can cover all the questions and then address some questions from the audience. Okay, so how about one last question for just us? And it's a fun question. So what is your favorite project, a project that you have worked on?
Can start. So most of my marketing experience are in B2B marketing. So sometimes it sounds less exciting. So I think to me, any storytelling project, for example, like back to Amazon, we have a series featuring seller stories. or like producing educational content. I think those are my favorite campaign or projects because I enjoy helping people and empowering them to tell their stories. I think that's the charm of marketing and also the charm of storytelling. And also, I think storytelling is a very powerful tool or skill set in marketing nowadays.
My favorite experience in my job was, it's not strictly related to marketing and data, but it's more to do with something that I think is very relevant in marketing, which is people. When you work in marketing, you work with people. And when I was at Amazon, I did this quite a big project, content creation project that is called Seller Masterclasses, where we created educational content for prospective sellers to come and sell on Amazon with existing sellers across 5 European markets. And I just loved it because I got to work with small businesses that managed to use Amazon to create a successful and a successful business, and just learning from them, listening to how they speak, to how they talk about their story, the resilience that it takes to build a small brand and then go to Amazon and make it great. It was just great. I loved it. So it's not strictly related to marketing, but it's related to the people, which is a big piece of marketing.
Totally. I think people is such an important factor in how much we enjoy the work that we do.
Yeah.
And for me, I have an example, and it has to do with like the mission or the inspiration. So my favorite project that I could think of is when I was studying and living in Europe, where I worked for the largest real estate technology company in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. It's called OVG Real Estate, which has since been renamed to Edge Technologies. And this company specializes in smart and sustainable commercial real estate for tenants such as Deloitte, Salesforce, or Boston Consulting Group. So in 2014, they built the most sustainable and smartest office building in the world and continue to raise the bar. And so this was 10 years ago. Like maybe it seems normal these days, but 10 years ago, they had security robots instead of security guards in the building, walking around. They had flex desks, treadmill desks, bike desks, EV chargers, like cameras that recognize license plates as a car enters the garage, and then automated light control for each person according to their preference. So it was really revolutionary back then. And so the tenants that usually occupy the buildings that you can imagine are long-term and corporate workers. So then this company wanted to inspire synergy between larger enterprise and the smaller entrepreneurs by building a space for short-term tenants or co-working to join the enterprise client. So I worked on a business plan from scratch that years later became what's called today the Edge Workspaces. And it provides flexible workspace with amazing amenities like climbing walls, as well as inspirational community events. So it was a lot.
That's so cool.
I will never forget how eager I felt to get to the office every day. And I loved every day I worked there. So I think I feel really lucky because I think this planted a beautiful seed in my career where my relationship with workplaces have always been positive, and my relationship with marketing has always been positive. Because like sometimes I run into like a musician or an artist that I really admire, and they would say like, I need marketing. I will be like, huh, like I can't take you on as a client, but I have ideas of how the same marketing principles can help anybody. So I think like all these positive experiences just make me more helpful to the world and to things that I care about, to the things that I find values in.
Of course.
So we have 1 more minute, and I know Tonton has to go. So I wanted to pick one question that was sent to me during our chat, if you have time. If not, that's okay. Are we still okay for one more question?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you shift from general marketing communications to market research or market data analyst? What are the core skills a research or data analyst would need? So this came from the audience.
So I personally think, and I think what we just said for the past hour, it's kind of the proof is that every marketer is in fact, a little bit a marketing data analyst or a marketing researcher. It's just the scale at which you are a data analyst is a bit different, depending on the type of marketing you work on. So in my opinion, the shift is not that drastic. Maybe though you might have to strengthen some technical skills. This could be like data visualization or market research techniques or data mining. So maybe being able to use tools like R, which is a coding tool to do data mining. So it's more like the technical skill that you might have to reinforce, but the shift shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, I think based on my personal experience, so in digital marketing world, I first started doing everything because I work for a startup. And then I shift to a corporate environment where I focus on certain area, so which is social media, both organic, paid, and everything, like from planning to execution to reporting. And then I moved to Amazon, where I specifically focus on insights, so analytics, like the aspect for social media. So I think the shift sometimes can be natural, but like Virginia mentioned, like you will need some technical skills. So for me, I think it really depends on the depth of your work. So if you are very dedicated to data analysis, then and also assuming you do not have a data scientist or data analyst to work with, then you might need to know like maybe R or maybe SQL or maybe Tableau or how to build the data infrastructure. But if you are more like a marketer working on the analysis project, then I think the key point is you know the basic of Excel. And then you know how to use different tools, like how to use Tableau or how to use SQL based on someone already produced the programming languages or have a like model for you. I think that's how you will be able to start first and start easily. Just do something more like shallow and then continue deep dive and then maybe shift to a more technical roles if you want to.
That's super helpful. Thank you for your input. So we're at time. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and also a special thank you to Virginia and Tongtong for your time and your wisdoms today. Everyone be sure to visit integrate.wvu.edu for upcoming sessions, recordings of previous episodes, and to subscribe to receive updates. Thank you everyone for a great
Thank you, Katian.
Thank you. Thank you, Katian.
Thank you.
session.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.